So everyone, thought I would take a few minutes and share a short post about journaling. I was trying to see if I could see the video without glasses, but man, I'm getting old. I have a stack journals right here. Just bought a new bulk of them, probably about 50. Pretty inexpensive on Amazon. Pass them out to clients. I used to do a different type of journal, but I'm passing out more and more journals these days, and so I had to get more. But pretty simple. Probably next time I'll go with lined ones. But the whole reason I want to share this with you is because I have really, over the last 4 months, come to a belief, pretty adamant, that journaling is perhaps one of the best ways for a person to, I don't know, grow in their life. It's a great opportunity to externalize, to get thoughts out of your head onto paper, to look at them objectively, and then to essentially in that process reflect on them, often leading towards some type of course of action. I probably started journaling when I was maybe 20, and I had the practice and the habit pretty good for about 12 years, probably till about the age of 32. 32. So my daughter was born and life just got crazy. You know, when you're single or married, no kids, you have a little more bandwidth and time. I've started a lot of journals over the years with the intention of like actually giving it to a person. I've started journals for my daughter, for my wife, for my son. Written a lot in those. Last night, I actually pulled a huge bin of journals down that I've had over the last, 20 plus years, and was kind of reading through some of them. And it just kind of really cool to see. Sorry, appointment reminder. Really cool to see. I don't know, the progress God's work in my life. And so I wrote a little post on my website, my blog last week, and I want to share just a couple of thoughts with you, a couple of bullet points that I recommended. First of all, journal doesn't matter what kind. It doesn't have to be an official journal. It could be a notepad. You could hop and do some kind of Word document. Don't let the idea of a specific type of journal actually keep you from journaling. I find that to be a huge roadblock for people. They'll spend days, sometimes weeks, trying to find the right journal as if that's the practice itself. I say just grab some paper, a pen, and just start going. So any journal will do. Second, I would encourage people to commit to journaling every day for 1 month. I know that may sound like a lot, but what I've found is you really have to get some momentum and some traction going and some consistency to see if it's worth, pursuing or not. And so 1 month every day, I don't think is too much to ask for. So with that in mind, what I would recommend is that you come up with a couple of like prompts or parameters. Don't be consumed or tied up to how long a journal entry may be. Sometimes I tell people a journal entry could be 2 words, it could be 2 sentences, it could be 2 paragraphs. I know for me, what's sidetracked me in journaling often is when I feel like I have to write a certain amount every day. Right now, I'm in a pretty good habit of journaling every day for like the last 4.5 months. And, on average, I probably journal a few paragraphs a day, sometimes more when I feel like I just have a lot to say and I got a little extra time, sometimes less. Sometimes it's a paragraph when I have very little time. I would say, though, that for me, I tend to be a little more, people who know me, a little more verbose in terms of words. I can talk a lot. So it's not hard for me to write a lot. So being succinct is probably my biggest challenge. So for you, don't be tied to this idea that journaling has to look a certain way. The goal is every day for 1 month, you're just going to set aside 5 minutes, maybe 10, and just write down some things and then leave it when the time is up. Don't feel like it has to be this finished, beautiful, novel or thought. So for me, a couple prompts can be helpful for people. And those are just questions you want to answer every day. I mean, they could be questions like, what am I feeling today? What do I notice I'm feeling a lot? The question could be, where do I see God most at work in my life? Or where do I feel God's absence the most? Those may be questions for people who come from a certain faith tradition. It could be journaling. The prompt could be everyday writing, hey, what is going really well for me today? What's not going well? Um, you could journal about a specific person. For me, this is just a personal bent. I usually like to tune in and check in. What am I feeling? What do I notice that's leading me to do my behaviors? And trying to really focus on the truth about who I am. So for me, it's kind of this like course correction, identifying patterns and trying to move towards certain directions. But I think the key is to have a couple of prompts just so you don't feel lost in the process. Many years ago, I don't know, a decade or more, there was a journal called the 5 Minute Journal, I think, and it had a couple questions each day, like three, and then I think two at night. I did that for a little while. So sometimes like a little, there is a million journals you can buy that actually have prompts already in there. I tend to like to come at things with a blank um, page, no prompts, and just kind of checking in with myself. What's going on with me right now? But prompts can be very helpful, especially in the beginning, having those boundaries to kind of guide you. And then the more guidance you have, often the more disciplined you become. And then the more disciplined you come, eventually you got some things down that give you more freedom in terms of veering outside those boundaries. So a couple prompts. I would recommend identifying a time, a space, maybe. For me, I like to journal at the kitchen table, or I have a desk upstairs in this room set aside. It's just we converted our big media room into like a workout room slash book reading room slash my office. So I like to sit that desk and journal. So I think having a space, some people like to sit their couch or a specific chair and write. I do better writing at a table. So having a space, having a time you set aside. For me, I usually try to journal in the morning before the day gets going, just set aside a little bit of time. Um, that's ideal for me. That morning ritual kind of triggers the habit, gets it going. You may like to journal at night. When I was young, I would say between the ages of like 20 and 32, I mostly journaled at night, pretty late. James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, he talks about the way to build a habit essentially is to narrow the scope sometimes when you don't have time to keep the practice going. So, for example, I'll just use a workout metaphor. If you have to do a 45-minute workout that day and you don't have time, instead of not doing it, just reduce the scope to a 10-minute workout just to keep the habit, to keep the discipline. Same with the journaling. You may set aside like 15 minutes every day, but one morning you notice you only have like 2 minutes. Well, instead of sacrificing that, just do 2 minutes. So narrow the scope to keep the practice going. And then what I would say is after 1 month, reflect back on your experience. Identify like how it shaped you. And if you don't like it, that's okay. There's no pressure, right, to continue on. You don't have to journal. But if you notice it started to shape you in powerful ways, which I think it will, then you can decide how you want to continue the practice. I have many people in my life, my wife being one of them, my father, another one, a lot of friends who they would probably say that journaling is one of the most important practices for them. And they do it pretty consistently, maybe not every day, but pretty consistently. It's a way to, again, get thoughts out of us, to externalize them onto paper, to reflect back. A lot of times in our life, we just don't have a space for reflection. We just keep things inside, bouncing off our own head. There's no objective reality or truth coming. We're just in our own little bubbles. And unless you're talking to someone through all these things, unless you're going to therapy and getting feedback, how do you know what's going on in your life? So journaling is one helpful way. Again, I just buy, go to Amazon journal, go to Amazon and search journals and you'll find all kinds. These are for clients, as I mentioned. And then I usually, just out of habit, I've been sticking with is it Moleskine or Moleskine journal probably, I don't know, since early 2000s, maybe actually probably like 98 or something. I just like the texture and the feel of it and the different colors and the different way it's laid out. So I have a specific journal that I like to use. And then when that journal's done, I put it in a bin and save it. And I often go back and refer to it. Last night I went back to an old journal from 2002, 2003, and I took some photos of some stuff. Just interesting to see some of the stuff I'm still struggling with. Interesting to see some of the growth I've had. Interesting to see some old projects that I wasn't able to get to at that time. We're still percolating or were coming to life then, and I'm still wrestling with them. And so I've used it as the tool to kind of like just capture some things and go back and see how I've made progress where I'm stuck. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you. I think it's super helpful. if I were working with people, which I am, and I only gave them like maybe three tools that I want them to practice, journaling would be one of those tools. And then maybe just be where I'm at in my own life too. But I just, um, the personal experience for myself and working with clients says journal is one of the most important things we can do for our life. So, anyways, just wanted you to think about that. I hope that's helpful. Do you have any questions? Always feel free to reach out to me at Rhett, RHETT, at rhettsmith.com. You all take care.